Carla, is the spirit that got you out of Jacksonville to Radcliffe, is it still there?
I would have to say it's very much still here and alive and kicking, Tom. How are you this morning?
We're very good. Wonderful to have you with us. I'd like you to interpret for us what Wall Street can do to allow a nation to heal and move forward.
Yes, I'll tell you, one of the things that Wall Street can do as providers of capital is to make sure that those who don't have equal access to capital get that access. And that's one of the things we've done at Morgan Stanley. As you know, Tom, we started a multicultural innovation lab 4 years ago. And I'm so excited today because it's our demo day. So that's the big coming out day where our companies, the 9 companies that have been in the lab, will be shown to investors.
And we know that here through the acumen of Betsy Graysick looking at banking. And, of course, then there's Ellen Zettner, who's been killing it as well in economics. Carla Harris, I want to know what we need to do to get the mathiness of your degree in economics from Harvard. How do we get women, how do we get minorities engaged in the joys of microeconomics?
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of it is access to education, as you know, and then access to opportunities. And the entrepreneurs that are out there, it's around access to capital, because as you know, women get less than 3% of traditional VC dollars, and people of color get less than 2% or 1%, depending on your source. So I think that what we can do is to make sure that they know where the capital is and give them a fair shot. And in many cases, these entrepreneurs have already been de-risked by the time we even see them because they've had such a much tougher journey.
Well, Carla Harris, it's 2020. Why have we been so bad at actually providing that capital to people that need it? And will 2020 really be a turning point for this?
Yeah, if I want to be constructive, I'll tell you that the reason that we've been bad at it is that people like to lean on the excuse that they can't find any. But that's one of the things that we've been trying to fix through our podcast, Access and Opportunity, is to highlight some of these great entrepreneurs and to highlight those who've already invested. Because the more you put data out there and the more you elevate the conversation, I think the more people will start to say, wait, there really is something there. And the companies that we've brought into our lab have gone on to raise over $30 million after they've been in the lab, which means we have been successful in raising the level of visibility. And today we have over $54 billion that will be represented among the investors that have come to our virtual demo day.
Carla Harris, I remember speaking many years ago, actually, to Christine Lagarde, and she would go around when she was at the IMF speaking to heads of state who said, I would love to find a woman to fill that job as finance minister, as environment minister, but they're just not there. And she would show up, literally, and have a list and say, well, here, I have a list of names that you could look at. How do we incentivize people on Wall Street to do more? Does it have to be, does diversity have to be part of their pay package?
Well, I think it has to be a part of your intent and your objectives. No question about it. Because if you want to avail yourself of the best talent, you have to avail yourself of all the talent that's in the marketplace. And that's really the hallmark of good leadership. So I think you have to be intentional about making sure you have diverse thinking at the table, or you're going to have a gap in your go-to-market strategy, and expose yourself to competition in a way that you never have before, especially going forward with millennials and Zers really caring about this.
Ms. Harris, we are learning so much in this pandemic, all of us. It's been actually really humbling. Just as one stupid thing, I'm using a lot less paper than I did before this pandemic. There's serious things that are out there, and I would suggest the major constraint now, as it's been for decades, is the child care in this nation. It's a major constraint. Jamie Dimon's talked about it at J.P. Morgan. I'm sure James Gorman has at Morgan Stanley as well. How do we get to a child care program that mimics selected other developed nations?
Well, I'll tell you, many corporations, including my own, have created programs for working parents so that they will have places to keep their kids, or they'll have people that are available in emergencies. And I frankly think on the other side of COVID-19, you're going to see more and more companies think about a way that they can be innovative around child care. So you bring up a very good point, Tom.
Carla Harris, from where I'm sitting, which is not in the U.S., it's really quite, difficult to see a United States that's so divided ahead of the election on all sorts of fronts. What's the prescription for going forward?
Well, I am certainly a glass half full kind of girl, as you know, and I do believe that on the other side of this global pandemic, we will find a way to come together. I think that's one of the reasons, frankly, if you really want to get spiritual about it, this has descended upon us to really make us focus on the fact that we're all interdependent. And we all need each other at the end of the day. And this is the first time in my lifetime, and probably in yours, that this has been a common experience. And I'm hopeful that because it's been a common experience, we will come together and find a common solution. And you're right, it's hurtful to see the divide. But I think, on the other side of this, we'll find a way to get together.
How will it reshape Wall Street? How will it reshape how we work from home or not? What do you see as the lasting legacy of COVID-19?
I think every company will have to rethink its real estate portfolio, how they work, how efficient people can be with the right kind of technology. I think companies are seeing that for the first time. So I think every company across every industry is sort of rethinking, what do we need to look like? What's our optimal size? How can we enable people to be even more productive and, more importantly, more innovative if they're not in the same space? And the big question is, how do you create and drive culture when you aren't under the same roof? That's the big question.
So, Carla, what's the question you get the most by clients of Morgan Stanley? What do they want to know about what kind of economy we're building, what kind of social cohesion will be post-2020?
Well, the biggest question that I've gotten, especially as a public speaker, is how do you lead when you're not in the same space? How do you drive productivity? How do you keep people comfortable and focused and really driving in the same direction and maximize your productivity? And frankly, what I've been saying to leaders, especially when we went into this shelter-in-place protocol, there's three things that you must do. Number one, you must be visible. Number two, you must be transparent about what you know and what you don't know, and more importantly, when you know it. And number three, you must be empathetic. And that will allow you to create some stability and some certainty when people are craving stability and certainty and you're not in the same place. And if you are authentic, which is number one, then they are apt to follow you into this uncertain environment.
But the pandemic will also hurt women more than men. It will hurt, BAME people more than whites. How do we address this? How do we rebalance this?
Well, I have to tell you, I am not of the mind that it necessarily will put people at a disadvantage, women and people of color, because this is the first time in many ways that there's a level playing field. It used to be if you're in the same place, maybe someone shared, they went to the same school or they golfed together, and you might have been intimidated by approaching a leader because you saw them talking to someone else and you said, well, I don't share playing golf, or I don't share having gone to that school. But now everybody has to communicate in this way. So there is a level playing field. And so now it's really about your own initiative to reach out to someone and say, hey, Tom, I wanted to have a conversation with you pre-COVID. Can you give me 10 minutes on a Zoom? I'd like to walk through 3 or 4 things with you and talk about my career. So now you can be very focused, very intentional, and you can connect in the same way that everyone else is connecting. So I actually think this has created a bit of a level playing field. But your initiative must drive the connection, no question.